Hello, and welcome to Season 13, Episode 145 of the Cartridge Club's Game of the Month podcast, where we bring together members of the Cartridge Club community to discuss our monthly playthrough. If you're new to the club or are interested in participating in future months, please join our community Discord or follow us on Twitter at Cartridge Club NA. We love to see the hashtag Cartridge Club used whenever you talk about one of the games we've selected. I'm Captain Algebra, and on behalf of our rotating pool of hosts, I'd like to thank you for tuning in. Additionally, on behalf of the entire Cartridge Club community, I'd like to give a huge shout out to our Patreon Club backers: Joel Boyce, Canadian Grooves, Christopher Rohr, Ross Ringo, Caleb J. Ross, and Dean Lasagna. Thank you all so much. You're such an integral part of why we can do this each and every month. September marks the beginning of the new Cartridge Club season, and because this year is the 30th anniversary of the Sony PlayStation, we decided to play a classic PlayStation game, Syphon Filter. So joining me to talk about the game are GameBoy Guru.
Howdy.
And J-Chip.
How's it going?
Good. And GameBoy Guru, I believe this is your first time on the podcast. Is that correct?
It is indeed.
Awesome. Well, we are happy to have you. I know, J-Chip, you're a veteran.
Yeah.
So, all right, looking forward to this conversation. So, first thing I like to always start with is just ask you if this is the first time you played the game and any experience with the other games in the series. So, GameBoy Guru, we're going to start with you. Have you played Syphon Filter or any of the games in the series before?
Definitely. Actually, I've played through the original Syphon Filter quite a few times over the years. I had experience with an early demo of the game that I can't remember if it was a PlayStation Magazine demo disc or just a regular PlayStation demo disc. But yeah, I discovered that at a friend's house and pretty much fell in love with the game right away. And then after I got my own PlayStation, I bought a copy for myself, and then eventually got the second game in the series. And several years later, I picked up the third game in the series. And then over time, I've picked up the other games. I haven't spent nearly enough time with the Omega Strain on PS2, and I've only dabbled with the two PSP games because they didn't quite have the same magic that the originals had.
J-Chip, what about you?
So this is my first time playing all the way through. However, I do have some experience with this game back in the day. My brother had a PS1, and this is one of the games that he had. Now, I wasn't allowed to play his PlayStation, but there were times when I would sneak into his room and play it.
Nice.
I was actually talking to him about it. He actually remembers this game fondly, and it was one of the games that he got when he first got his PlayStation, so
cool.
It meant a lot to him.
Nice. Have you played any of the other games in the series?
Nope, but I do own quite a bit of them. I think I'm missing one of the PSP games.
Very cool. Nice. And I have had my copy, I think, since it was released, if not very close to. I don't remember if I saw a commercial for it or a magazine ad. It just looked really cool. And I started playing it, and I got stuck on second level when the bomb goes off and the subway's on fire and stuff, and I couldn't find the C4. And so I had my mom, when she came home from work, stop at Walmart and pick up the strategy guide. And then I finally figured out where the C4 was, and I loved the game. I had so much fun with it. I only played through it that one time, but I definitely used the strategy guide and used the cheat codes. I think there was a code to give you every weapon and unlimited ammo. And so I would just mow down people. I would, pick and choose what weapon I wanted to use. Sometimes, I would just tase everybody. Sometimes I would use the M79 just to blow everybody up if I could, and had a great time with it. And then I never played another game in the series. I do have the second one. I have Omega Strain, and I have one of the PSP games, but I haven't played them all. But I'm thinking after playing through the original one again, I think I'll check out at least the second one this year, and then maybe next year I'll start looking at the other ones. Like I said, I need to get 3 still. I saw it when I was in Chicago a couple weekends ago, game hunting, but I ended up not picking it up. So maybe soon I'll grab it. So then we're going to the story. I just got a quick little synopsis here. In Syphon Filter, agency agents Gabe Logan and Leon Zing are dispatched to combat international terrorist Eric Romer and the Black Baton. who are using viral outbreaks as a cover for developing and distributing the superweapon known as Syphon filter. Their investigation leads them to a plantation in Costa Rica, then across the world, as they uncover a conspiracy involving the biotechnical corporation Farcom. So, J-Chip, we're going to start with you. What did you think about the story?
I mean, if we're going to be real honest, the story isn't really that great. There's a lot of moments in this game where it's like there's this one character that ends up betraying you, but you don't know who the character is until he betrays you. So it's like, was this really that important?
I think you had an inkling of it, though. Like, I think I knew who it was pretty quickly.
I mean, you'd never meet him ever before that event happened. So it's like, who is this guy? Like, why is he betraying us?
Well, wasn't he in the room at one point? Wasn't he in like the big meeting room? Or were you not there at that point? Was Gabe not in there?
I don't think Gabe was there.
It was just Benton and I don't remember the other guy.
Markinson, probably.
Markinson. Yeah. So
Yeah.
Gabe wasn't in there. It was just those two. Okay.
But like, for what it is, it's not the worst thing ever. This is very inspired. I feel like this is very inspired by Metal Gear Solid, which came out about 5 months before this game came out. So I'm sure there was a lot of inspiration there.
And then GameBoy Guru, what about you?
I'm of two minds on this, because when I first bought the game, I really liked the story because it was the first time that I felt like I had played something, and this is prior to having played Metal Gear Solid, but it's the first time I felt like I had played something that captured some level of realism in terms of the espionage and spy life kind of thing, but also realizing that it's all kind of fantastical at the same point. And so it rides that line nicely between the fantastical elements of early James Bond movies with the more grounded elements of some of the later James Bond stuff, where I jumped into the series, like the two Timothy Dalton films, or I would say GoldenEye is somewhat grounded, at least. Because that movie was actually written for Dalton originally, but then Pierce Brosnan ended up jumping into that. And so this game really is what sparked my interest in spy fiction. And then later I got into stuff like Alias and then Chuck and other things along the lines. And so really this is what kicked it off for me.
Oh, that's awesome.
But
yeah,
I also agree with J-Chip in the sense that, yeah, I mean, it's a video game,
right?
That especially for its time, they kind of did the best with what they had, and there are definitely plot holes. And so I try to look at it as a product of its time, understanding that they weren't going to be able to go in with a Hollywood budget or anything like that, or a story that was going to be really complex and all of that. But I still think for what it is, it's pretty decent.
Yeah, for sure. Story honestly is never too important to me. I thought this one was fine. I did find it interesting, the betrayal, and I think biological weapons was always a big fear of things in the world, and so it kind of hit that tone really well. Because I think just in real life, people are always worried about a biological weapon happening and stuff, and how that would affect the world and stuff. So that was cool. I think I did like the various types of missions that it created, whether you had to be stealthing around or whether you could kind of go and be full action oriented and just kind of blast everybody away. So I felt like the story did a nice job kind of pacing that. But again, yeah, it's like you mentioned, there's plot holes. There's plot holes in almost any story. These old games, I don't think needed the story to be good, right? I think gameplay is king in the end. At least it always is for me. And I enjoyed the gameplay really well, so the story wasn't too important. So now let's talk about some of those characters before we get into the gameplay. So there's a whole host of them. I just put a few of the main ones here. So we got our main protagonist, Gabe Logan. He's the one you play as, and then Leon Zing is the one who's in your ear, telling you your objectives and stuff like that. And you're basically trying to find Romer, but he has a lot of people to help him, like Mara Aramov, Gurdu, Marcos. I think you fight him at some point. So I know we are all kind of lukewarm on the story, but how did you guys feel about the characters themselves? J-Chip, we'll start with you.
Well, Gabe Logan, you know, he he's an interesting character to say the least. He kind of walks the line between a James Bond and a Sam Fisher like character. I know this game came out before Splinter Cell, but that really gave me this game really gave me a lot of Splinter Cell vibes, and his character just kind of reminded me of him. He's not a terrible character. He's just kind of there. He kind of just does what's right for him, and overall, like he's just a cool dude, man. I like playing as him.
Yeah, Gabe Logan kind of seems like uh, the everyman character that is in this world of intrigue and espionage, and of course has gone through all the training and stuff to be in this position. But it's interesting that he is a little bit more of a tabula rasa in some ways, but the voice actor obviously gives him at least some personality.
For sure. I don't know. Yeah, I felt like Gabe, like while I liked him as the main character, he was just kind of generic. I think you could plop him into any action game and he would have fit in just fine. So I would have liked to see a little bit more personality from him, and we'll get to into the voice acting a little bit later. I know J-Chip's got some thoughts on the voice acting. So yeah, Logan was fine. I thought Leon did a nice job of being a little bit different than Logan and being in your ear, telling you what to do and giving you your objectives. She also wasn't extremely annoying where she was talking to you every 5 seconds. She was kind of there when you needed her.
Yeah, Leon, I think, is a very good kind of radio buddy sort of voice in the game. Not annoying, like you said, a good counterpoint to Gabe, and it's cool that she actually plays more into the story throughout the game than you might otherwise expect with a character who's just the radio buddy.
Right. Yeah, so unlike, the radio buddies in like J-Chip, you brought up Metal Gear Solid before. They're just their radio buddies. They don't really impact the story much at all. I know in that one eventually one of them gets taken away, but like they're never in the actual levels like Leon ends up being at some point. So I want to talk about the antagonists now. So we got our main guy Romer, but then he's got a lot of people who help him out like Mara Aramov and Gerdu and Marcos. I will be honest, I was kind of disappointed in Romer. I thought his character was fine, but I think what really brought it down for me was just the fight against him was very underwhelming. You can finish that fight extremely quickly, and he doesn't seem like a big bad boss to me. I thought the boss fights against Gerdu, even the one against Mara Aramov where you're chasing her in the subway tunnel, was better than that fight with Romer. Guru, we're going to start with you this time. What do you think about the antagonists?
Yeah, Mara Aramov specifically scratches that James Bond itch. She kind of fits that archetype of the female antagonist in a James Bond film. I'm trying to remember the name of the character, but it was Famke Janssen's character in GoldenEye. She gives me major vibes like that.
I mean, they sort of fit their archetype, They're not, to me, they weren't memorable. I think I will agree with you guys that what was her name again? Mara
Aramov.
Yeah, Mara was the more interesting character of the two, and it's kind of weird that she ends up kind of teaming with you towards the end. I felt like that kind of could have been done better, but I mean, the rest of the characters were fine. They sort of just fit their own archetype.
Yeah, I think it's more a situation where the settings and the way that you have to deal with them is perhaps more interesting than the characters themselves. Like the boss fights against those characters are more interesting, particularly the Gerdu fight, where you can't just confront Gerdu with your weapons. There's a particular way that you have to approach that fight, and that is more interesting, I think.
Yes, for sure.
Yeah.
So you mentioned Famke Janssen. So she played Xenia Onatop in GoldenEye.
Yes.
So yep, I could definitely see that. When did GoldenEye come out?
I think it was 97.
97. And when did Syphon Filter come out?
It was 98 or 99.
Syphon Filter came out in 99.
Yeah.
Okay, so definitely, I think they got some inspiration from Goldeneye then for sure. They had to have, because I could definitely see that once you said that, Guru, it's like, oh, for sure, she
Yeah.
definitely fits that type exactly. And then I just want to kind of mention Markinson and Benton. They're like the agency guys, and obviously J-Chip already mentioned Benton's the one that betrays you and stuff. I felt were completely generic, right? They put them in suits, they got the short hair, they put on the dark sunglasses, and they're just kind of there. Even though Benton betrays you, was not very inspired by their characters at all.
Yeah, and I'm sure the recurring characters in the later games, like, they improve, but as far as this first game goes, I think the character work could have been a little better.
Right. Now, Guru, since you've said you've dabbled a little bit in the other games.
Yeah.
Okay.
I've definitely played through the second game
Okay.
a couple of times.
So, do any characters from one, other than like Logan and like I'm assuming Leon is in that one, do they carry over into two at all?
Yeah, Logan and Leon carry over. I want to say there's mention of a couple of other characters. It's been a few years since I picked up the second game. I know there's one character at the beginning of the game. You know, J-Chip, you mentioned that the betrayal, was just kind of felt like it didn't really matter that much. There is a character at the beginning of the second game that betrays you as well, but it happens much earlier in the game, and if memory serves, then you kind of know that he's sort of behind the plot to foil your plans as Gabe Logan. And yeah, but one of the cool things about the second game is there's a couple of missions where you actually get to play as Leon.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
So she's not like a completely useless character like some side characters are in some games.
Right. Well, and even in this game, even in this first game, as I said, she's not just a radio buddy. You end up rescuing her at some point late in the game, and then there's an escort mission that you have to go through to get out of the facility. But she's armed, and she will attack autonomously when you're running through the building. And so in that sense, she's not useless either, because there are times when she may be taking on one particular enemy, and you can focus on another enemy or two in the room, so that you don't have to try and quickly pop off on all three or whatever.
Right. Yeah. There's nothing worse in games when you've got an escort mission like something like that, and they can't help at all, or even if they do have weapons, they aren't effective. So she's at least helps out a little bit.
Exactly.
For sure. I think I'm going to actually change gameplay to after sound, because since we're talking about characters anyways, we should probably bring up the sound, specifically the voice acting. And J-Chip, I'm going to let you start, because I know you already shared some thoughts about the voice acting when you beat the game. What did you think about the voice acting, J-Chip?
I mean, it's a product of the time, A lot of these actors, I looked up to see what they're doing now, and this is, from what I know, the only thing they've ever been in. So
oh, wow.
You can kind of guess, maybe they just kind of found these guys. They were local talent, and this is probably the first thing they've ever done. And it really does sound like that. Gabe himself just sounds kind of bored.
For sure.
It's so weird, because like there'll be a sentence going on, and then immediately someone will cut them off and just start their own sentence, and it's just kind of edited weird. Also, everyone just sounds like they're using their own mic as if they were recording from home. I don't know how that would happen in the 90s, but it sounds like that. Is it the worst voice acting I've ever heard in my life? No, but it's a product of its time for sure, and it's just very cheesy.
I would describe it as lovably cheesy, in the sense that, yeah, it's cheesy. I would totally agree it's a product of its time, and this could just be nostalgia talking, but I enjoy it for what it is. I would say, in spite of the cheesiness of the voice acting. When I was playing through this time, I definitely noticed some bits where, yeah, the editing was weird. The conversations didn't flow very naturally, particularly some of the dialogue between Logan and Leon. And it's probably more noticeable now than when I first played it because at the time, there wasn't a lot that was well crafted or well voice acted, with the possible exception of Metal Gear Solid at that time.
Mhm.
And so this really stood out to me back in 99 or 2000 when I first played it, because it was such a different beast than the other console games I'd played before.
Yeah, I think I would echo that. But I think because um, Siphon Filter, it was like one of the first PlayStation games I remember playing. Like I played Crash Bandicoot, which obviously does not have a ton of voice acting in it, whereas this one's a whole lot more. And so as a kid, I really liked it. And even playing it again, like it was very nostalgic hearing Gabe and Leon's voice and Mara's voice. It's like it made me remember playing it as a kid. But Gabe's voice is also just kind of flat. There's not much emotion to it and stuff, It's kind of boring. And so you could definitely hear that now. But again, because of the nostalgia, the cheesiness, I do kind of enjoy it a little bit. But I can definitely see where both of you are coming from.
It's kind of like watching a bad movie,
Mhm.
Sometimes maybe it's bad, but you kind of enjoy it.
Right.
Yep.
For sure. All right. So then what about the other sound? There was some music in the background. I honestly didn't pay too much attention to it. But I really did like the sound effects. I thought the sounds of like the gun shooting, picking up ammo, picking up flak jackets, opening up the containers that had the weapons and stuff inside of it, I thought was really nicely done. How'd you guys feel about the sound design other than the voice acting? Guru, we're going to start with you this time.
Yeah, actually, I thought the sound design was quite well done. Each of the weapons has a distinct sound to it, which I appreciated, and there are some other really good sounds in there as well. Things like in that first area, when you're there are a couple of spots where you get to shoot out glass doors or windows, and that's a pretty realistic sound.
Mm-hmm.
Same thing with when you go into the club or the bar or whatever it is, and you can shoot beer bottles and stuff
Yep.
on the tables, and that's a realistic sound. Things like that, or a few other sounds in the game, like there's some engine sounds or some of the explosions are particularly good. So I think overall the sound design is pretty solid, um, with regard to most of what's in the game.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I would agree. And the music I didn't pay attention to either, but it didn't sound awful. Like it sounded fine, but overall, I would say sound wise, this was pretty solid.
Yeah, the
Yeah.
the soundtrack to the game is one that I have nostalgia for, mostly because of how many hours I put into this game over the years. But playing it again today, or recently for this episode, uh, only the title screen theme sticks out to me the most. Much of the other music works really well as background music, but isn't all that memorable. That something I would want to listen to outside of the game.
Yeah, I completely agree. I honestly sometimes forgot that there was music in the levels. Specifically like when I streamed it one night, just like the first, I don't know, 5, 6 levels, whatever it was. And I found myself just like thinking there was no music at times just because you could barely hear it. But yes, the title soundtrack is very familiar to me. Again, it just hits that nostalgia. And I think that was a big part for me during this whole playthrough. Everything was just very nostalgic. Every time I did a mission, every time like Gabe or Leon spoke to each other, the sound of like when an objective was added or objective was complete, it was just making me remember when I played it back in the 90s or late 90s. And
Yeah,
that was always fun. I mean, nostalgia is one of those things you can't take away from a game. You can try to be objective as best you can when comparing games and deciding your favorite games, but nostalgia is so hard to beat that I don't know. I really had fun with this, and yeah, every time I turned it on to play it this month, Just I sat at the title sequence just for a little bit of time, just to kind of reminisce about when I used to play it back in the day.
One thing about the sound design that I do appreciate is that there are some missions where ones that are designed more stealthy, there are bits where the music will ramp up, the volume will increase, and it'll become more of a heightened sense of what's going on
Mm-hmm.
when either you're discovered or if it's a stealth mission and you're taking out enemies stealthily. Even once you've done, if an enemy discovers you, but you take out that enemy before they have an opportunity to sound the alarm, for
Mm-hmm.
example, it'll play that more heightened,
Right.
intensified music for a little bit, just to kind of let you know, hey, you're in the danger zone,
Mm-hmm.
and you gotta be careful not to be discovered. And so that's a nice touch for,
Yeah.
especially for a game from this era.
Right. Yeah, I like that because I don't know how you guys played, but I spent a lot of time like peeking around corners and taking people out with headshots. And
Yep.
it was nice to know like if that music didn't ramp up, you're still good. Like they haven't spotted you yet. But like as soon as you start to hear that, it's like, okay, you better take this person out quickly, otherwise you might be in trouble.
Yep.
All right. Well, let's go ahead and get into the gameplay now. For me, gameplay is always number one, most important thing. Story is fine, characters are fine, but if a game's not fun, then I don't want to play it. And so we're going to start with the controls. I really like the controls. I think they work well for the game. Like we already just mentioned, you can peek around corners. You're able to climb up and stuff. You're able to lower yourself down. You can sneak around instead of just running. When you get your scope, you can zoom in and zoom out pretty clearly. So I just thought the controls worked well enough for the game. I never really found myself getting into the bad spots just because of the controls. But how'd you guys feel about them?
Yeah, controls were pretty solid for the most part. It's the typical tank controls for the time, which I know people may be frustrated with when they play, but you know, once you get used to it, I think this game controls really fine. As you said, shooting people is pretty fun. Sneaking around is great, and especially when you have enemies with flank jackets, you really want to get those headshots in, and that's very important in this game. So once you learn like a way to do that, I think the game controls fine.
Yeah, I always appreciated the control in the game because of how much flexibility that it gives you. The tank controls, yeah, that can be a bit of an issue, but the fact that you can use the what is it, L2 and R2 to strafe,
Mm-hmm.
gives you a lot of flexibility in terms of movement. That's of course how you peek around the corners when you're using L1 to manually target. I like the fact that you can strafe and do all the movement while you're using uh, R1 as your auto targeting. And so if you need to run around a little bit to avoid enemy fire while you're cutting an enemy into ribbons with one of your weapons, then you can do that with not only the D-pad or the analog stick, but also the L2 and R2 for strafing. And so you've got a lot of flexibility there. The roll is handy, the crouch is handy, both for taking cover behind objects, but then also for straight or for stealth and things like that. And yeah, the sniper rifle and the night vision rifle with the zoom feature was really nice. The only thing that I noticed when I was playing it this time that I guess I had forgotten about is when you peek around the corner to fire a weapon, that does not work with the taser. You basically
Oh,
have to
really?
be exposed when you use the taser, because if you try to peek around the corner and use the taser, it'll fire, but then you'll move back and it doesn't actually engage.
Oh,
And
okay.
so that's one of the downsides of the taser weapon is that you have
Mm-hmm.
to be out in the open basically in order to use it.
Right.
But overall, I feel like the control is fairly good for a game of its time. And actually, I was going to mention that because I hamstrung myself when I was playing this time. I've always played
Mm-hmm.
it on original hardware with DualShock controller because I do feel like the analog control in the game is good,
Hmm.
particularly because you can use just a small push on the joystick to allow Gabe to just walk,
Yeah.
whereas if you're using the D-pad, he's just running. And so the
Hmm.
only way to do stealth then is to crouch. This time I used it's the Retro Fighters Defender controller. It's wireless because my rack of consoles is pretty far away from my couch, and so I didn't want to string a controller cable plus extension all the way over there. So I used this instead. But this doesn't have that true analog movement for the PlayStation the way that the DualShock controllers did. And
Hmm.
so I ended up using the crouch movement way more than I otherwise might, um, just for stealth, because this doesn't allow you to walk. Otherwise, and then the other thing is the L1 and R1 that are triggers on here because this is also
Right.
compatible with PC and PlayStation 2 and that. And so I found myself while I was resting my fingers on here, if
Hmm.
you just touch it slightly, oh, I'm strafing. I didn't
Yeah.
mean to. So that happened a lot during my playthrough.
Right. Yeah. I started the game because I played on my PlayStation 2 because I don't have an original PlayStation console anymore. And I started using the analog and like it did feel good. But whenever I play original PlayStation games, even if they support analog, I find myself going back to D-pad. And I think that's just because that's how I played for all those years until the PlayStation 2 came out. Even when I play Crash Bandicoot, I play Spyro the Dragon. I just prefer using the D-pad, even though you'd think it'd be more freeing with the analog stick because then you can go kind of more different directions and stuff. I don't know. I like the feel of the D-pad, and I thought it was done well in the game. One thing I really like to do was when you're peeking around the corner, I would kind of like press it quickly to peek just to kind of so they wouldn't spot me, but I could also get an idea of like where their head was, and then I could line up um my reticle with where their head would be, so that way when I peeked out, it'd be right on them, and boom, I could shoot them.
Yeah, major strategy in this game.
Hmm.
And one great thing about it though is when you're trying to go for a headshot, I really appreciate that when you're zooming in, it'll say headshot and you
Yep.
get him every time. So that's a great thing they added.
It is. Yeah, I just like, yeah, just saying in headshot in general, right? Doesn't matter what weapon you're using. If you've got a headshot, it tells you, which is super nice. So it's not like, oh, that should have been a headshot. It's like, no, they're going to tell you if it's a headshot or not. And then you mentioned with the rifle, even the night vision one, right? It'll tell you on the side if you're shooting their head, which is
Yes.
super nice, especially since at that point, all you see is the green character, right? So it's like, you got to be for sure that you're hitting the head. You're not like hitting shoulder or something like that. So that was a nice touch. All right. Anything else you guys want to share about controls before we move on to the levels?
What did you think about fighting the enemies themselves?
I thought it was good. I thought Guru brought up a good point, right? You got your manual targeting, and then you also have your lock on. So depending on the situation, you could do either or. Obviously, with flak jackets, you want to do the manual aiming so you could hit their head. So then you could pick up their flak jacket for more armor if you needed it, which is something I didn't need to when I first played it. Like I said, I played with the cheat code, so I never lost health. So it wasn't something I thought of. But this time, I had to be a lot more careful, so I didn't die and stuff and take too many shots. Because it was kind of cool. Like when an enemy started shooting at you, usually they missed for a little bit, but then as soon as they locked onto you, your health just depleted quickly. So you had to be
Well,
very
the
careful.
thing the thing about that though is that when the danger meter is full, that's when you're taking damage.
Hmm.
So that's something that if anybody is playing this for the first time, you got to make sure you look at your danger meter because if that's full, that's when you're going to take some hits.
Yeah. And the one thing I would say with that is you can mitigate that partially if you do a lot of running around and rolling. You'll miss some of the enemy shots will miss sometimes. And so that can allow you to get back around the corner or take cover somewhere so that you're not just getting shredded by enemies in those situations. One thing about the enemy I would say is um, every enemy is locked into a particular area. And so even if an enemy has spotted you and by rights should follow you to try and take you out, they're going to stick within their little perimeter that they're supposed to be in. And I'm wondering how much of that is by design because the game doesn't want to make it too difficult, and how much of that is limitations of the PlayStation hardware and the memory that's available on the console, and all of that. Because I like something like when you take out enemies in the game in a large level. Let's say you take out an enemy and they drop a weapon, and you're full already on that particular weapon. If you leave and then come back to that area, the weapon that they left or the flak jacket that they dropped will still be there. The corpse has disappeared, but the drops that they left are right there still. But like the enemies themselves, they won't stray too far from their normal position, and so it becomes very helpful for you as a player because you kind of know where they hit the wall, so to speak, the invisible wall as to how far they can go, and you can find a way to take cover outside of that, and then hopefully peek around the corner or figure out how to mitigate that threat from more of a distance when they're not pursuing you.
I really appreciated that the flak jackets and weapons didn't disappear, especially on those later levels where you might accidentally just kind of mess up and miss some enemies and they kind of take care of your health and you are desperate for some flak jackets. You're like, all right, I'm just going to run back. I know where there's one that's laying there on the ground, and then, have a chance to be able to finish that mission. I also wanted to mention rolling was a huge part when you're escaping Romer's base. I did a whole lot of rolling all the way back through that level, other than when I had to kill the enemies. But yeah, rolling was very helpful, even though it was kind of slow. Like his animation of like starting to roll, I was like, "Are you in slow motion, Gabe? What are you doing?" All right, well, let's go ahead and get into the missions. They're kind of broken up into parts, and I kind of did that when I made the outline. So like the first 5 missions kind of are kind of considered like the Washington, D.C. missions. It gives you a good chance to get to know the game, get to know the controls. None of them are too difficult, I felt like. And you do kind of get 2 boss fights during that with Mara Aramov and Gurdu. So we've got Georgia Street, the destroyed subway, the main subway line, then Washington Park, and then finally the Freedom Memorial. How did you guys feel like about those first 5 missions into the game?
They're kind of like your tutorial levels. This game doesn't really have a tutorial section. It has a training video, which kind of tells you about the controls and stuff like that. But I feel like these first 5 missions were really ones that get you prepared, what you're going to expect. There's going to be some action. It may be some stealth levels here and there. So I really do appreciate that they designed the missions pretty well in these first 5 missions.
Yeah, and I like the fact that it breaks up the style quite a bit too, because of course Georgia Street, you're doing a lot of running around, taking out enemies. There are a couple of objectives to fulfill, but really is a lot of very close quarters combat with enemies, and then a little bit of peeking around corners and stuff like that. But most of what you'll be doing in that initial mission is auto targeting because very few enemies have flak jackets, and you'll be able to just kind of get through it. Whereas you get down into the subway, and then you've got heavier mission objectives: finding the C4, setting the charges, locating the viral bombs, and things like that. And then, of course, in the destroyed subway, when once the explosion occurs, then it's more a combination of taking out the handful of enemies that are left over, but then also getting through and navigating. And that's where you start learning about jumping up and climbing objects and things like that. And really, that teaches you how to do that, and that comes into play as far as learning that you've got more verticality and there's more of the level that you'll be able to explore. And then, of course, you get introduced to the sniper rifle in the Washington Park level, um, where you've got to be a little bit more stealthy. And then, of course, the boss fight with Gurdu is the one that I mentioned before, where your approach to that has to be different because you can't target Gurdu himself because he's wearing body armor. And so because he's got that flamethrower, you actually have to target um, the gas tank or whatever on his back and cause it to explode, which then is how you do the boss fight. And so it's an interesting approach that shows you pretty early in the game you're going to have to approach some of these fights in an unconventional manner. You can't just go in guns blazing. And so I appreciated that about the early part of the game, that it it didn't overplay its hand, but it also told you right from the get-go that you can't approach every mission the same and you can't do everything just, it's not one note.
Yeah.
Right.
And one thing I want to touch on, going back to the characters, I'm really happy that Gabe isn't perfect, because like there are times when you see a bomb and you have to call a specialist to defuse the bomb because he can't do it, obviously. So I do appreciate the touches here and there where they're like, he's still a human. At the end of the day, he's not an uber badass like James Bond. So like, he's just a guy.
Yeah.
Yeah. I do want to ask about the destroyed subway, because I already mentioned early in the podcast how I got lost early on as a kid. J-Chip, specifically for you, since this is the first time you really spent a lot of time with it, did you have any trouble finding the C4 or knowing to go vertical in that level?
Yeah, I'll be honest. I had to look up where I was going to go because I didn't know if I was supposed to go up or just where to go, because it was kind of disorienting and it was just very confusing on where do I go, because all the doors are locked. Obviously, there's fire everywhere, and like I couldn't really get where to go.
Right. And you got to be careful. You get too close to that fire, you're dead.
Yeah.
Do you ever
There-
accidentally run near to too close to the fire?
Yeah.
Yeah. I wish like you had a chance to like get the fire off you, but I felt like as soon as you touched it, you're just dead.
Yeah.
Which
Yeah.
is what it is.
And that spot actually was one of the things that impressed me so much about the game when I first played it, was right at the beginning of that section when there's all the fire around and you get up onto the ledge and then sort of go just a little bit. There's a dude coming right at you who's burning alive.
Yep.
And you either have to try to pop a headshot right away to get him to drop, or just back up far enough so that he won't make it all the way to you and he just collapses. But it's one of the I guess really interesting parts about the game that impressed me when I first played it. Like, oh, that's obviously a gruesome way to go, but
Right.
pretty cool that they would include something like that and make that a different type of obstacle in the game that you have to overcome.
Yeah, and I appreciate they did it a few times with the burning guy, but they also didn't do it too much where it was like where it was too often. But it also was kind of different each time. Like sometimes you didn't have as much space to go backwards, so you'd be very careful. Sometimes you had to get off that shot onto his to his headshot, but
Right.
yeah, that was super cool. I appreciated the main subway line, basically the boss fight against Mara Aramov. There's a couple different ways you can end that mission. If you're quick, if you peek around right away and get a headshot on her, the mission's over. Like you can finish that within seconds if you're quick. Or, you can run all the way through it, and then you got to defeat her at the end where she's got the flak jacket on. But that was also interesting because you have to worry about the subway trains. You've got one going towards you, one going the other way, and you kind of have to alternate what side you're running on. So that was cool. One time, I think it was when I was streaming it, I completely didn't pay attention to which way the train was going, and ended up being on the wrong side, and it just killed me. So that was a fun little thing, and it is nice that you can there's like gaps underneath some of the concrete and stuff that you can roll underneath. So it gave you multiple avenues to get through that level, which was a nice touch. Washington Park made me nervous when I was coming into it because I remembered you had to disarm, was it 4 bombs in that level? And then there was the hostages and the tennis courts. And for some reason, I don't like time in video games. And in my head, I was like, oh, there's not a lot of time. I don't remember where all these people are. I'm going to have to hurry up through it. But then you realize you get, 20 minutes, I think. It's plenty of time, especially since the bombs are kind of early on and in the middle of the level. After that, you still got like half the level where you don't have to worry about the bomb. So it wasn't that big of a deal. But yeah, I did enjoy Washington Park.
Yeah, It isn't enough time if you forget one of the bombs and you get to the tennis courts before that and then have to backtrack. That happened to me, and I ended up having to restart the mission
Oh
because I'd
man.
forgotten one of the bombs. Um, but yeah, once you disable those bombs, you're good. Um, and it definitely tells you that part, kind of dovetailing on what J-Chip said before about the first few levels being a tutorial. That part really teaches you about the importance of stealth and good use of the sniper rifle so that you can take out certain enemies. Because if you approach it incorrectly, you'll get discovered, or if you misfire using the sniper rifle, then you'll be discovered and the mission parameter fails, because then the uh, the enemy who is holding the two hostages will take them out, and then you'll have to restart from the last checkpoint.
Yeah. Last thing before we move on to the next set of levels. So the boss fight with Gurdu, you already mentioned, Guru, that we can't shoot them straight on. You got to shoot his flamethrower backpack. I guess, what was your strategy for him? Did you run around a lot? Did you kind of stick in one place? What worked for you? J-Chip, we're going to start with you.
I just pretty much hid behind a pillar. A lot of times he would be just standing there, and that's when I would take the opportunity to shoot at him.
Yeah, pretty much the same for me. I would run around to find a pillar that would be as close to opposite his position as possible, so I could peek around the corner, pop off a few shots at the backpack, and then let him fire at me, and then I would run around, try to get 2, 3 pillars over or whatever, so that I can reposition and then get more good shots toward him.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, I turn around and I hide behind the pillar that's right there, because he's behind the statue at first and he just kind of walks around it towards you. So you have a little bit of time to get behind the pillar. When I did it off stream, I did not have to move past that pillar. I popped out, I shot him, popped back. He didn't see me, and he would just look at me and then turn around. And then I'd peek out, shoot him again. And the same thing kept happening. He never came off the pedestal. He stayed there the whole time. But then when I streamed it, he did come off the pedestal, but all he did was walk in between the pillars. I got a couple shots on him, and then he walked back to the pedestal of the statue or whatever, and that was it. Whereas I remember as a kid, maybe I just was a lot worse at stealth. I remember him getting shots off me with his flamethrower. I remember having to run around all over the level. So I'm glad I found a little bit better strategy against him this time. But yeah, he didn't put up much of a challenge at all. All right, let's go ahead and move on to the next 2 missions, which are part of the Expo Center. And just, I think the big touch I remember of these ones is all the kind of different sets, because it's the Expo Center is it's like a museum, it seems like, right? You've got the moon area, you've got like a dinosaur area, you got all these different areas you go through. And I just specifically remember at the beginning of the second part in the diorama, when you basically have to fall down through the glass ceiling, I thought that was super cool. When I first saw it.
Yeah, that's a great set piece. I appreciated the variety that they give you in that expo center, to where there's a lot to do, and that was one of the areas that I struggled quite a bit because of the fact that I was using that controller that didn't have the true analog movement, and so my ability to be stealthy in that level was harder, and I actually had to fail quite a few times early on before I found a rhythm and kind of got to where I could get through the stealth sections successfully.
Yeah, for sure. I think this is kind of where the difficulty starts to increase a little bit. It's not too difficult, but I did find myself dying quite a few times and just failing to get sort of in rhythm until I was like, I should just be stealthier here rather than just go full on action.
Yeah, and I was trying to do my best to just use my memory of when I played it back in the day. of like where enemies were in that first section when you have to be stealthy and you're following Fagin. I did remember like in that first part, you just climb up those steps a little bit and then the guard walks by and you can take him out and then you can peek around and go. But then as I was kind of weaving my way through the halls, there are a couple times where I'm like, I don't think there's an enemy here. And then I would run past and all of a sudden an enemy would walk out. I'm like, crap, I got to turn around and try and get out of sight. Because obviously they catch you or they see you, then that mission basically has failed and you have to start it over. So that one definitely took a few restarts because I kept getting seen by the enemy. But after that, once you're through that part, it wasn't very difficult. I think the first time I really got stuck in the game was I had to find another key card and I couldn't remember where it was. And it was the part where with the space shuttle and there's that elevator that's going that you can go down in. And I forgot that there's another control pad up higher than you and you have to look up and shoot it. And that brings you up higher. So then you can go get the key card. I spent at least 10 minutes running around, backtracking, trying to figure out where that key card was because I couldn't progress otherwise.
Yeah, I forgot about the shooting of the control panel to make the elevator go up in that spot. So I was running back and forth, trying to figure out there's somewhere else I need to be. I just can't figure out where it is. And so I watched a YouTube tutorial of that section. And then as soon as I saw that part, I'm like, oh yeah. There's quite a few spots in this game where the solution isn't obvious like that, but it's all very contextual within the level you're in and sort of for its time. It's a lot less handholdy than what you would expect from a modern game.
Right. And the thing is, though, I remembered from when I played as a kid that you could go up. I just couldn't remember. So, like, I tried to press the same control pad twice to see, oh, maybe now it'll make me go up, and that didn't work. It was completely lost on me to remember to look up. And the thing is, though, like, they give you that hint because it's sparking. The one above you is sparking. It's like, I just didn't think to look up until eventually, like I said, 10, 15 minutes in, I'm like, oh, that's right. I got to shoot that up there. That was annoying, but I figured it out. And then I do really like the part where Aramov's got the gun to Fagin's head. It's basically like as soon as you hear her start speaking, you got to get out that sniper rifle and shoot the gun out of her hand. And I don't remember, if you shoot her, do you fail the mission?
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah.
So you have to shoot the gun.
Yeah.
That's right.
I thought I was supposed to kill her.
Oh, so you killed her, huh?
And yeah, you're not supposed to kill her. I even shot him because I was like, I don't know what to do here. Yeah. Until I was just like curious to shoot the handgun, and that's how you do it.
Mm-hmm. Well, fortunately, the game is pretty generous with checkpoints, so you don't usually have to do an entire mission over again. So I'm assuming you just reloaded a checkpoint at that point, J-Chip?
Yeah.
So that is
now. This game may be generous with its checkpoints, but it is not generous with its health when you restart a checkpoint. But we'll get to that later on.
Oh yeah, for sure. All right, so next we have probably my favorite area of the game, and that's Romer's Base. So this took care of, I think there were 4 missions. There was Romer's Base, then you get into the base bunker, and then you got the base tower, and then you finally have your base escape. And I don't know why, but I just really enjoyed these missions. Not so much the boss fight against the helicopter, but we'll talk about that when we get there. But just Romer's Base was kind of fun, going around setting the C4 charges. And then I don't remember what their name was. You had to take out one of the like captains or something. Do you guys remember what his name was?
Oh, not off the top of my head.
What is it? I know. Let me look I got the strategy guide right here. Gabrick, something like that. But he's got some flak jacket guys with him. So basically you had to use your gas grenades to take him out unless you were fast enough to shoot all their heads quickly. Because otherwise, once he's alerted, then I think you fail the mission. So, but I always remember, because in the strategy guide, it tells you to just like lock on and throw a grenade, but it takes Gabe a little bit of time to like do the throwing motion. So I remember the first time as a kid when I did that, I failed the mission because it only killed like one of the guards. And so this time I knew from remembering that as a kid, I was like, okay, I'm just going to manually aim a little bit ahead, throw the gas grenade, and then it took care of all of them. You also had to be careful you weren't too far in the corner because then the grenade just hit a wall and killed yourself.
Yes, I did that more than once.
Yep. So how did you guys feel about these Romer base areas?
So this is where this game is, as I mentioned, very lucrative with its checkpoints, but not with its health. When you get caught in this level, the mission doesn't end. You just have endless enemies, and it's kind of a pain. Even if you get a checkpoint, you're
Mhm.
always caught. So you either have to restart the entire level or just go full on action.
Did you
So
what did you do? Did you go full on action? Did you try to beat it with them coming
well,
after you?
well, I didn't know. I didn't. I didn't know how to aim the gas grenade. So I just said screw it and just kill him, and then just
Nice.
continue the mission with everyone just going after me.
Hmm.
Yeah, I
And
restarted
so
that
you
level at
made it,
least a
huh?
dozen times. Yeah,
But you made it out with people coming after you?
what I did was is I had to do the C4 missions first before anybody spotted me. It wasn't until I had to kill him and then go into the bunker and to where I was like, you know what, just screw it. I'll just get caught and just run.
Right. At least at that point, the mission's almost over.
Yeah,
It's not like
it's
you got caught right away at the beginning of the level.
that would be tough because like the enemies are just endless, like and they're relentless.
Yeah, that's one of the few times in the game where getting seen during what's supposed to be a stealth part doesn't end the mission and make you restart at the beginning or the at the checkpoint. Um, but the downside is if you're trying to do it stealth and you trigger the next checkpoint uh, while you've been discovered and the alarm's going off, then you will always be discovered when that checkpoint restarts. And so you're kind of hosed at that point. I remember getting through the level once many years ago while the alarm was going and actually managing to make it through
Oh, nice, impressive.
years and years ago, but I only did it the once. Otherwise, I try to do it stealth because that's the best way. This is definitely my favorite area in the game, specifically Roamer's Base.
Hmm.
I love the stealth element in this stage. The addition of the gas grenades is a nice touch, specifically because of the points where you're supposed to use it, like the two guards at the end of the hall that are on opposite sides. That you really need to use the gas grenades unless you're really good at lining up a pair of headshots and just not missing. Um, and then of course with Gabrick, um, but I also like how you need to take out the rotating searchlights. That was such a cool thing for me when I first noticed that. Was like, oh, I can take out the lights and then I don't get discovered, or I don't have to like try and wait until it moves and then roll or whatever. I can actually take out the searchlight to make the stealth portion of the level easier. Um, and so, yeah, Roamer's Base is definitely my favorite area in the game. And even going back to my old save file on my memory card, I noticed that with the limited number of slots that you have, I always left a Roamer's Base slot there because that was one of those things that I used to play through over and over again. My when I first had this game, my wife worked third shift, and so like on Friday nights, I would stay up late playing this game, and I would replay that mission a bunch of times, and play until 2, 3, 4 in the morning. Um, just kind of going through, and so yeah, this mission was always my favorite.
Yeah, it's a fun one for sure. I think just because my favorite control in the game is peeking around corners and killing people with headshots, and you do this so much in that level that yeah, I think it helps make it stick out quite a bit. Plus, I mean, you got that extra anxiety of like you are all alone on your enemy's base, so there's no one to help you. You're a one-man army, and so you kind of feel like a badass taking everybody out, but you also have to be careful not to be seen. So yeah, it's a really fun level. uh what did you guys think about the boss fight with the helicopter? I will say this is the one that I struggled with the most and I died multiple times. And the problem with it was not only you have to deal with the helicopter, but they keep dropping enemies. And then if you didn't take them out fast enough, they would kill you, and then or they would knock your armor down and health down, and then the helicopter would kill you. But yeah, how'd you guys do against the helicopter?
Horrible at the first at the first, because like it's a helicopter versus a person. Like what do you expect?
Hmm,
I'm actually kind of thankful that they have enemies coming after you, because if you're low on ammo, you really need to rely on those guys and use your
it's true.
taser to take them out.
Right, which is probably
Um,
why they put the enemies in there to keep replenishing your ammo.
right. So after many deaths, you just have to be very persistent and use your shots when you can. Because if he's aiming at you and he just fires at you, there's no way you can dodge all that. You have to be protected at all costs.
Yeah, this is a fight that I struggled with a lot when I first played the game. But going back to it, I think it only took me maybe 3 or 4 tries this time, mostly because I remembered when the helicopter is coming up, if you can look at your radar map on the screen and figure out where it's going to be, you can set yourself up positionally so you can be near where that's going to be. And while the helicopter's rising, you can auto target and just unload your PK 102 at it and get a bunch of damage in. And then when it starts to move up enough to get its weapons going, then you can begin to run, but keep auto targeting so you can continue to shoot it and then maybe do a roll or something like that to avoid taking too many hits. And one of the ammo or one of the item boxes that pops up at the beginning of that is a flak jacket. So at least you do have some ability to replenish during that fight if you need to. But yeah, it really only takes about 2, 3, maybe 4 passes to take it out completely if you just really focus on unloading your 102 at the chopper. And so, yeah, it's a frustrating fight initially, but once you get a rhythm and you kind of know what you're doing, it's not too bad.
Nice. And then obviously after that, you got the base escape. You just got to get out of there before it blows up. Like I said, I rolled my way through that one, so I didn't really have too much trouble with that one. But I know that has given some people that I know trouble in the past. But I do like those quick missions where it's like, all right, you just got to get through this, run, kill as many enemies as you can, but try to avoid as much as you can too. How'd you guys feel about the base escape?
I had to restart that a couple of times because I would get killed, overwhelmed by a couple 3 enemies all at
Mm-hmm.
once. But yeah, it wasn't too bad. I remember it being maybe harder initially than what it ended up being this time. And so I don't know how much of that was I just approached it right this time versus um, you know, or have I had a rhythm.
Yeah, I think I'm sort of the same. I didn't really find it too difficult. Once you get a rhythm going, it's pretty smooth sailing from here.
All right, sounds good. So then we move into the next section of levels, and that's Romer Stronghold. So basically, you got the main area, then you got the lower level, and then into the catacombs. And I remember when I got to this part, I was kind of nervous, just feeling like I was going to get lost. Especially at the beginning, you're kind of like on the roof, and you have to figure out your way in. And there's one section that has holes in the roof or like in the concrete and stuff. And then there's another way where you can get in. And the first time I did follow the path that had the holes, and because in my head I was like, does he just automatically run and jump over them? I can't remember, but he does not. He just fell into the hole, and I'm like, okay, I went the wrong way. I'm gonna go the other way. But
Yeah.
I did remember how there's a lot of like monks in the windows. So every time I saw a window, I would just shoot it out, just so I wasn't surprised by a monk. But I enjoyed those missions. I remembered going around giving the antigen to all the people that you could, but then also needing to kill the scientists. And most of them had flak jackets, or a couple of them you had guns, so you had to be careful to not let them get too many shots on you. But yeah, how'd you guys feel about Romer Stronghold?
It's a very solid level. I think it's a very interesting contrast compared to the last levels you were in. This is actually a level I got stuck on. I remember going through the entire level, and what I didn't realize is I had one patient left, and I want to say I spent a good 15 minutes trying to find this guy, and I felt like a complete idiot, because he was on the second part of that building, and he's like literally right there, but I ran past him like maybe 5 times.
Oh, that sucks.
Yeah.
I had a similar experience this time where I missed one of the patients and ended up having to do a bunch of backtracking just to figure out which room did I miss or which room did I skip over. And so, I had to do that. But there are definitely a couple of tricky bits in this area in the stronghold where you can get caught pretty easily if you enter a room where there might be 2, 3, even 4 enemies, and you can get cut to ribbons pretty quickly if you're not peeking around corners and making sure that you can take cover and then kind of take out enemies one by one.
Yeah, those monks can be ruthless. Like
Yeah,
they can shred your health very quickly.
but it is a cool area overall. I mean, the set piece is pretty neat.
Mm-hmm. For sure. And then you got the catacombs level. That's at where you finish off. We already mentioned that a little bit. You've got the little bit escort mission. Because first you have to find Fagin, and then you got to lead Fagin, or Fagin leads you to Leon's cell. So you got to protect him, and he does not have a weapon, so he is completely useless.
Yes.
But then you get Leon, and she's much more helpful. But still, like it can be a tough level because sometimes you'll turn around a corner, and then all of a sudden there's a bunch of enemies, and they have flak jackets, and if you're not quick enough to get headshots, or if you're running low on your ammo with the what was it? I think you got a G18, and
Yeah.
then there's another one. Is it you got the PK102? Do you have the KG one at that point?
I think you do get the K3G4 there,
Yeah.
but the G18 is definitely the way to go.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, both the K3 and the G18 are very good at getting through the flak jackets, but still, when you get surrounded and you're trying to protect Leon and yourself, like even with those flak jacket shredding bullets, it's still you got to be careful. It's better to get those headshots. Plus,
Yep.
then you get the armor in case you're taking damage.
Yeah. And it's definitely more easier when you're with Leanne for sure, because she has a gun and she's not a terrible shot either. She helps you out. Um, yeah, I wouldn't say this was a terrible mission. The escort part. Um, I died quite a few times on the Fagin part, but I just felt like it was a little bit easier when you have a person that has a gun with you.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
All right. Well, then we get to part 5, which is the Farcom warehouses and the elite guards, and then Warehouse 76. And I felt like this is where you knew you're getting close to the end because I felt like this is where the difficulty really picked up, just from a sense of like the aggressiveness of the enemies. And even though in the Farcom warehouses you have what Fagins and Romer's people are fighting each other, like they're still going to attempt to kill you as well, and they've got good weapons and a lot of flak jackets, so you have to be careful. And the warehouses was the first level where I actually got completely stuck, that I actually had to look something up, and that's because I missed one of the viral carriers. Even though you got that scanner, and I thought I was pulling out enough to like scan the area, I just happened to miss one of the viral characters actually towards the end or beginning of the level. And so I went through most of it. I got to the end, and all of a sudden, I get the message from, I don't remember if I get a message from Leon or maybe just it popped up on the screen saying I still had to get another viral character. And I'm like, oh shit, where is it? And that's one of those missions where the enemies just keep showing up because like I said, Romer and Fagin's guys are fighting each other. And so I brought out the strategy guide. Okay, I'm like, which one did I miss? And then I went and got it, and then it was fine. But yeah, that was the one where I got stuck for a little while.
I did the same thing this time where I missed one of the viral carriers early on. And so I ended up having to backtrack and figure out where it was at and then tag the body and then move forward. But yeah, I think this is the Farcom warehouse level specifically is my other favorite area of the game, even though it is more difficult and either of the enemy types will fire at you if you're discovered. The fact that you've got these two different enemy forces fighting one another, and you can use that to your advantage in certain spots. In fact, there are points where you have to use that to your advantage. One area where you have to climb up onto this onto this container and then jump up and grab the line to sort of shimmy over to the ledge where you shut the power off.
Yep.
The best way to handle that is to wait until there are both Farcom guards and Roamer's men there shooting at each other so that you can jump up and crawl over without being seen, because otherwise they'll start firing at you. And Gabe moves slow enough when he's doing that sideways thing that you're gonna get taken out if they see you.
Yeah, I made that mistake the first time, and I started shimmying over, and then I just got wrecked, and I had to restart the mission.
Yeah. So it's a cool set piece, and it's awesome that there is that element where the enemies will fire at you when they see you, but generally speaking, they're focused on taking each other out. And so there are times when it's good to use stealth to kind of get past them. There are times where, pull out your weapons and just run through that area, take out a couple of guys on the way just to minimize the danger, and then let them have at each other while you're going off to find a viral carrier or do whatever else. And so I would say it's pretty dynamic for a mission of that type from this era.
Yeah, I think if I had to compare, this is probably my least favorite section of the game. Just because I felt like the warehouses were a bit more of a maze-like sections compared to the other parts where it's a bit more linear and pretty easy to find where you're going. That being said, I still really enjoyed this part. I really like the enemies fighting each other. I think that's a really nice touch. And as you said, Cap, this is kind of where you're starting to this is where we're starting to wrap up, and I appreciate that.
Yeah, it's probably my least favorite section of the game. Not that it wasn't enjoyable. Like, I don't think I hated any part of the game. I had fun for the most part, but I don't know what it was. Maybe it was partly, having the scanner and needing to find those viral carriers. And maybe it's just remembering back to when I was a kid and struggling with that level because of that. But yeah, I didn't like that too much. And then Warehouse 76, the last kind of area, it gets blown up at the end of the previous mission. And so you've got a timer, and then also there's fire everywhere. So this might have been the mission I died on the most, not because of the enemies, but because once I forgot that the catwalks fell, and so I fell and died there once. And then I just occasionally I would accidentally get too close to the fire and just burn up. And I'm like, damn it, I gotta start again. And so yeah, I like mission Warehouse 76. I actually like it more than the Farcom levels, but it was probably my deadliest mission.
Yeah, definitely took me a bunch of tries the first time I played through the game. This time there was quite a bit I was surprised I remembered about how to do this level. And we talked before about the guy who's on fire coming at you down in the subway. Well, there's another one here. But there's a different way you can deal with that here. Whereas here, if you're on the ground level, you pretty much have to headshot that guy or back up, and he's going to run into you. But if you know where he's going to be and you climb and you jump up to the top of the box there, then you can trigger the guy coming in by just walking past those boxes there that are up against the large one, and he'll come in all on fire and do his thing. And then once he's passed, then you can climb back down on the other side and avoid that encounter altogether.
Oh, nice.
So I remembered that was where that guy was. And so it was something that I had never done it that way before. And I thought that was cool that the game gave you the flexibility to be able to handle that encounter either by taking it on ground level or by climbing above and just avoiding it altogether.
Nice.
Yeah, I actually really like this level a lot. There was a bit more creativity with this one, and just trying to find your way, getting out of a burning building is pretty cool. It's probably not the healthiest thing in the world, but I give Gabe Logan credit for having some pretty strong lungs.
For sure. Maybe that's why part of the mission was a timer, right? Because Logan was going to die from breathing all that crap in.
Yeah.
Nice. All right. Well, then we've got the last three missions: the silo access tunnel, the tunnel blackout, and the missile silo. And again, tough levels. I really wasn't a huge fan of the tunnel blackout. Yes, you had the night vision rifle, but if you got too close to them, they ended up seeing you, and then it was very tough to get that headshot since it was just completely dark. So that one I had to restart a couple times just because I died. But other than that, I didn't mind the silo access tunnel or the tunnel blackout. How'd you guys feel about those ones?
I would say this is where the difficulty kind of peaks at. A lot of the enemies have flame jackets. They're relentless. Like you, Cap, I didn't really like the tunnel part where it's all dark and you have to use the flashlight to move on ahead. I wish there was a gun where like a flashlight was attached to your pistol, because that would have been nice instead of having to switch between the two.
Right. Or even an ability to just like have night vision goggles on,
Yeah.
while you could still use regular weapons. But
Yeah. The tunnel blackout for sure was part of what I was struggling with toward the end. Because I kept being in a situation where I would miss a shot and then of course get discovered right away. And then as I was trying to line up my next shot, I would get riddled with bullets from whatever enemy I failed to take out the first time. And yeah, there were quite a few restarts on that, checkpoint restarts on that level.
for sure. And then we got the final mission, the missile silo, which is actually a pretty quick mission. You got to be quick right away, because is it right away where the rock or the missile's going to blow or get launched off, right? So you got to get behind the access door so you don't get burnt up, which is pretty crazy. But yeah, other than that, it's a short level. There's a ton of enemies, a lot of flak jackets, and then you got the final fight with Romer, which I've kind of talked to you about before. I thought I was pretty disappointed in it. It's an extremely quick fight. If you hit him with a gas grenade, he's done immediately. Like, there's not much to that fight. But then also, I actually had to do it twice, because the first time I fought him, like as soon as like he stopped talking and then it got out of the cutscene and I was playing, like he rounded a corner and just shredded me and I was dead. Whereas that didn't happen the second time. I actually had some time to get away from him. But yeah, how did you guys feel about that final mission?
Yeah, that I had forgotten about the gas grenades thing. I remembered thinking I got to get up into one of those cubbies where the enemies are at, because there's something in there I need, but I couldn't remember specifically what it was. And then, of course, as I'm playing through it, then I discovered, oh yeah, it's the gas grenades. But I had forgotten about the fact that when that missile silo mission starts, you have to find cover right away. And so like I was going over to the part where you have to jump up to get the missile access codes. I was trying to jump up there thinking, oh, can I get up far away from the fire? I had forgotten about the need to basically turn and then go and roll into that room where the doors were coming down. And so I died a bunch of times there until I figured out what it was that I needed to do. And then I also couldn't remember which of the walls of computer panels was the one that you had to use to basically deactivate the missile component. And so that took me a few tries to get to where I needed to be. But I think the gas grenades, I think you have to use gas grenades to take out Romer, because I was never able to take him out with headshots or anything else like that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think you're right. And maybe I wish it was more of a firefight. I wish I could actually shoot him and make it a little bit more fun of a boss fight. I don't know. Just like I said, if you hit him right away with the gas grenades, it's over. It's like,
right.
Well, there wasn't much to that. But I completely agree. Finding the way to deactivate that countdown. Oh God, because all the banks of computers look the same, right? You just basically have to get lucky and find where it is quickly, because at least at that point you're pretty low on time. You don't get a ton of time, and there's tons of enemies with flak jackets. So like, unless you got to be very quick at killing everybody so you can keep moving. And like, there was a time where I got into that room, I think I had like 30 seconds left, and yeah, I still failed it because I couldn't find that correct computer bank.
And I suspect that the mission is designed that way specifically so that you don't just blow through the first time, and that you'll have to fail and restart from a checkpoint a few times, to sort of, I don't, maybe pad the length at the end of the game. But with the gas grenades, I sort of appreciate the fact that is the way that you take him out, only because even though it would be cool to have a firefight with him, he's got the M79 grenade launcher, and so it would be difficult to have an effective boss fight given what you're up against. So I appreciate the fact that he is armed to the teeth with this grenade launcher that he can fire at will, and he never kills himself with it the way that you do if you fire it too close to a wall or another object.
Right.
Whereas the gas grenades, it's sort of like a almost like a fun little irony that here he is armed to the teeth and you can't take him out because of whatever body armor he's wearing, but then a gas grenade is what takes him down. And so it's kind of a funny irony, I guess.
Sure, yeah, I could see that.
Yeah, I just wish there was other ways to take them out other than the gas grenades. What I would have done is if, like, there's a bomb in there, and like another way you can take them out is if you can get out of that room before it blows up, then that's how you take them out. That would have been kind of cool. But like Cap said, the fight's pretty much over before it even starts, so it was kind of underwhelming there. But it is what it is, and there could be worse ways to end off a game.
Right, for sure. All right, well, that's the game. That is Syphon Filter. So I always like to end kind of with our overall thoughts, and there's kind of two things I want you to share. Would you play this game again, and then rate this game on a scale of 1 to 5? And I do remind you guys, I do allow halves, unlike Curtis, who does not allow us to do that. So J-Chip, what would you play this game again, and what do you give it for a rating?
I think I would play this game again if I were to go through the Syphon Filter series again. I think overall I would give it a 4 out of 5. Like, this is a very well made game. Sure, we can make fun of the voice acting. The story is pretty bad, but for a game like this, gameplay is key. And something that we haven't touched on is that the guys that made this game, previously they were known for Bubsy 3D. So, a complete 180 from this team making a pretty bad game to making a pretty solid action game.
That's true.
And do I think that this is like the best PlayStation game I've ever played? No, but I do think it's a very solid game, all things considered.
Nice.
Yeah, I absolutely would play this again. I mean, I've played through it a bunch of times over the years. In fact, I played through the first 2 games and part of the third game again. What was it, 2018, I think, when I was setting up my gaming area where I was living at the time, and I had hooked my CRT back up, and my PlayStation, because there was another playthrough I was doing of Vandal Hearts. And so when I finished that, I was like, yeah, I kind of want to play some other stuff. And so I got the itch to pull out the Syphon Filter games again. And so I went through them and played through them several years ago. And it was good to revisit it again. And yeah, I would definitely still play through this again because it's one that I've just enjoyed so much over the years. And I would agree, probably a 4 out of 5.
Awesome. And yeah, I would for sure play this again. We talked about nostalgia. I had so much fun replaying this game. Like, it was always a game I remember fondly from the first time I played it, but for some reason I never touched it again. It's just sitting in my collection and just collected dust. And so when we were trying to decide on what PlayStation game to play for September, and I was like, oh, Syphon Filter would be kind of fun to play again. And so I'm glad we went with it because I could not believe how much I remembered of the game for only playing it once. And now, granted, I'm sure when I first got the game, I'm sure I, played through the first few missions over and over and over again. I only played through the whole game once, though. So to remember all the way up to basically mission 15, from one playthrough, I thought was pretty cool. So it's like it had a lasting effect on me. So hopefully I don't go another almost 30 years without playing it, because I did enjoy it. But it also has me wanting to play the other games in the series. So I have Syphon Filter 2, so maybe before the end of the year, maybe I'll pop that in and play it. I think that'd be fun. And I'm in agreement with you guys. I gave it a 4 out of 5. It's definitely not perfect, but it's a fun game. It controls well. The voice acting is fun but cheesy, and it's got a good difficulty. It's not super easy where you're going to fly through the game. It's also not super difficult that where you're going to get frustrated. The checkpoints are nice. Obviously, like J-Chip said earlier, like in some missions, it doesn't work very well if like you've been seen already. But for the most part, the checkpoints are nice, and it's just a fun game overall. So I really enjoyed my time with it this month. So that is going to do it for this episode of the Cartridge Club Game of the Month podcast. We do have the next 3 months to announce. So in October, we'll be playing the Quarry on, I believe, is it only PS5 or is it also on Xbox? Do you guys know?
It's on Xbox. It's also on PS4 as well.
Perfect. So yes, play it. It's like Until Dawn and the Dark Pictures anthologies. It's a lot of fun. I streamed it last night. I'm having fun going through that game. Then November is going to be Yakuza 1. And then finally December, because a lot of us are usually busy, we're playing a short NES game, Jackal, which is a classic. And if you have not played Jackal, you have to play it. It's a classic.
Literally played it last week. It's a great game.
Mm-hmm. And now you can go for the no death run when you get to December.
Maybe. We'll see.
J-Chip, I'll come visit you. We will do a co-op no death run just like Megadan and I did.
Fair enough.
Good luck. That game ramps up quite a bit at the end.
It does. Yep. We did get Megadan and I got the co-op no death run done, but it took a lot longer than we thought it would. It took multiple streams, which was frustrating, but it was still fun because it's a good one.
As far as Yakuza is concerned, are you going to go with the original PS2 or the remake?
I mean, I always like to go with the original games if I can. So I'll just have to see if I can find it. If I can't find it, then I'll go with that remake. Just because I'm sure it's easier to find.
You can buy brand new copies of Yakuza on Amazon right now because
of the PS2.
Sega reprints that game still to this day.
Oh, sweet. Well, I'll be grabbing that then.
Yeah, I'll send you a link after this.
Awesome. Yeah, I appreciate it. Yeah, put it in the Discord. Guru, have you played Yakuza at all or the series?
No. So I'm curious about it because I've always heard good things.
Mm-hmm.
Actually, my podcast co-host has been into some Yakuza stuff, and so he's played through some of them, and I hear nothing but good things about the series. So I probably should jump on that one.
Sweet, yeah, for sure. Yeah, so we got some good games coming up the next 3 months. I'm looking forward to. I think I'm playing them all. The only one that would be unsure of is Yakuza, just because I don't have it yet. But I've already started the Quarry, and I've played Jackal plenty of times. I'll play that one for sure. So again, if you'd like to get involved with the club, I'd encourage you to follow us on Twitter at Cartridge Club NA. You can also visit our Discord for all kinds of discussion about past, present, and future games of the month. To those who are interested in supporting the club beyond a review on the podcast app of your choice, I'd like to mention that the club's entirely funded by pledges made from members of our community. We are extremely grateful to those supporters, and if you're interested in becoming one of them, please look into how you can do that at patreon.com/Cartridge Club. All right, so let's get some plugs in for you guys. GameBoy Guru, where can people find you on the interwebs?
Yeah, I'm on X or Twitter at GameBoy Guru. I'm on YouTube. And you look up GameBoy Guru there. I'm also on Twitch as Guru Game Boy because the opposite wasn't available for some reason. And then I've got my own podcast called Shoot the Core Cast. It's all shmup themed, and so we do a monthly game of the month, kind of similar format with this. And then we podcast about it. I've been super busy here the last month and a half or so. So we are a little behind on our episodes. We have one more episode to record from our summer event where we covered, since 2025 is the 80th anniversary of the end of World War II, we did 1943, 1941, and then 1944. And so we have yet to record our 1944 episode. But we did that summer event and then, just play different shoot 'em ups throughout the the course of the year.
Mhm.
And so, like for September, we were playing through Biohazard Battle,
Oh, nice.
Genesis Classic. Whereas
Yep.
this month we're playing through a relatively new indie shoot 'em up called Hazelnut Hex, which is
Okay.
sort of a, I guess you'd call it a cute 'em up, but sort of witch themed with the character and appropriate for a Halloween timeline.
Right.
So yeah, look up Shoot the Court Cast on whatever podcast app. I think we're on all the services. It's on my YouTube channel as well. I've got it linked there. And then we're at Shoot Corecast on Twitter, or look up Shoot the Corecast on Blue Sky. I think that's it.
Nice. Is that Hazelnut Hex? Is that digital only game? Does it have a physical release?
At this point, it's digital only, but
Okay.
it's on Steam. It's on Switch. I don't remember if it's on other platforms. But it's a fun game. I actually, when I first bought it a couple of years ago after it came out, um, I got a 1cc of the game pretty quickly. So it's not a super hard game. If you're not really good at shoot 'em ups, it's a very approachable game that can help you kind of get into the rhythm with those games and learn the flow. But of course, it does ramp up on harder difficulty. But definitely one that is worth checking out.
Sweet. Yeah, I'm gonna look that up after after the podcast is over. Very cool. Thanks for sharing.
Yeah.
J-Chip, where can we find you?
You can find me on YouTube at J-Chip Show. I'm also pretty active on Twitter and Blue Sky. I'm on Instagram, but I'm very rarely active in there. And also, you can find me on the Discord. I got a review coming up soon. I'm going to be reviewing the Codename Kids Next Door video game, which was a pretty solid game, all things considered. But yeah, look forward to that review coming out soon.
Awesome. Thank you, J-Chip. And you can find me on Facebook, Twitter, Blue Sky, YouTube, all Captain Algebra. I try to stream Tuesday and Fridays on YouTube, but sometimes I get a little busy and I can't do it every single time. But October, we're streaming all spooky games. Like I already mentioned, I'm doing the Quarry, the October game of the month. So I'm going for an all-death run since I've saved everybody before. Now I'm trying to get everyone killed. So that'll be fun to see the different ways they can die. I'm not sure what other games I'm going to be streaming this month, but then otherwise Tuesdays, I kind of do either a request or I play a game I want to. And then Friday, I'm slowly going through my Genesis collection as I'm going for a complete Genesis collection. So I'm going to eventually, hopefully, have every single game on stream, not beaten because some aren't very fun and some are just tough. But I've been having fun with that. All right. So I want to thank again you guys for being part of this, J-Chip. You've been on these multiple times lately. So it's always good to talk to you. And obviously, GameBoy Guru, glad to have you for your first time on the podcast, and we hope to have you again.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Then to everyone listening, we look forward to hearing from all of you soon. Thank you for joining us. CC Unite.